The boarding gate buzzed with the familiar rhythm of travelers rushing to find their seats. Among them walked Ava Carter, her every step steady, confident, and graceful. Dressed in a soft gray blazer over a fitted black dress, she exuded quiet authority, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. In one hand, she held a slim leather laptop bag. In the other, her boarding pass for Seat 1A, first class. As she entered the aircraft, the gentle hum of the air vents mixed with the murmur of passengers settling in. Ava found her seat near the window, smiled politely at the man beside her, and placed her bag in the overhead bin. She took out a small notebook and pen, jotting a few notes before takeoff. Her calm focus drew a few curious glances, but Ava barely noticed. She had taken hundreds of flights before. This one felt no different. At least that's what she thought. Moments later, a crisp voice sliced through the soft chatter. "Excuse me, ma'am." Ava looked up to see Miranda Scott, a senior flight attendant known among her peers for her exacting manner and sharp eye for detail. Miranda's uniform was flawless, scarf knotted perfectly, posture rigid, but there was a tension in her eyes that betrayed something else. "May I see your boarding pass?" Miranda asked, her tone polite but carrying an unmistakable edge. Ava handed it over with a composed smile. "Of course." Miranda scanned it, her brows furrowing. "This says first class." "That's correct," Ava replied evenly. Miranda hesitated, studying Ava a moment longer than necessary, as though trying to decide whether she belonged there. After an awkward pause, she handed back the pass, lips pressed into a thin line. "Thank you." Then she walked away, heels clicking sharply down the aisle. Ava blinked, mildly confused, but shrugged it off and returned to her notes. She had faced far tougher moments in boardrooms than on airplanes. Yet she couldn't shake the faint chill that followed the attendant's stare. Minutes later, Miranda returned, this time accompanied by another crew member. Her tone was cooler now, her authority firm. "Miss Carter, could you come with me, please? There seems to be a mix-up with your seat." Ava frowned but kept her composure. "A mix-up? My ticket is confirmed." Miranda crossed her arms. "I understand, but this seat may not be available to you. Please follow me." Every head in first class turned. The whispers began even before Ava rose from her seat. Clutching her laptop bag, she stood and followed Miranda toward the galley. "I'm sorry, but you'll have to move to economy until we sort this out," Miranda said flatly. Ava drew a steady breath. "Is there a reason for this sudden change?" "It's just airline policy," Miranda replied curtly, refusing to meet her eyes. "If you don't comply, I'll have to call security." The words hit like ice. Still, Ava didn't argue. She gathered her things and walked calmly to the back, aware of every stare and hushed whisper that followed. Her fingers tightened around the handle of her bag, but her face remained composed. She took the cramped middle seat Miranda pointed to, placed her bag under the seat, and gazed out the window. A few sympathetic passengers shot her uneasy smiles, but most avoided eye contact. Ava's phone vibrated. She unlocked it, typed quickly, and pressed send. Then a faint smile tugged at her lips. Small, knowing, deliberate. In first class, Miranda carried on with her duties, wearing a self-satisfied smile. She handed out drinks, adjusted trays, and pretended everything was normal. But something about Ava's calm had unnerved her. Why hadn't the woman argued? Why hadn't she demanded to speak to a supervisor? The quiet confidence still lingered like a shadow Miranda couldn't shake. Meanwhile, a younger attendant, Clara, approached Ava with a cup of water. "Ma'am, are you okay?" "You didn't deserve that." Ava met her gaze and smiled softly. "I'm fine, thank you. It's just a misunderstanding." But Clara could tell there was more behind those composed eyes. Something strategic, something powerful. As the plane leveled in midair, the captain's voice echoed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for flying with us today." Most passengers relaxed. Miranda didn't. She caught herself glancing toward the back, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. Then the intercom phone rang in the galley. Dennis, the senior attendant, picked it up. After a few seconds, he looked at Miranda. "It's for you." Confused, Miranda took the call. "This is Miranda Scott." A calm, authoritative voice answered, "This is the airline executive office." We've received a complaint about a first-class passenger being reassigned without cause. We'll need your statement after landing. Until then, refrain from making any further seat changes." Miranda's hand trembled. "Yes, of course." As she hung up, her face drained of color. She turned toward the main cabin, her eyes landing on Ava. Calm, composed, unreadable. For the first time, Miranda felt fear creep up her spine. She realized she might have made a very costly mistake. Ava's lips curved ever so slightly, and Miranda's chest tightened. That small smile wasn't arrogance, it was certainty. Whatever Ava had set in motion, it had already begun. As the engines hummed and the clouds drifted by, Miranda forced herself to smile for the passengers, unaware that with every mile they flew, her own downfall was closing in. When the plane lands, the real turbulence begins. The hum of the engines filled the cabin, but for Miranda Scott, it sounded more like a warning. Every step she took down the aisle felt heavier than the last. Her perfect smile was cracking, her voice strained as she served drinks to passengers who now seemed to be whispering behind her back. At the back of the plane, Ava Carter sat poised, unbothered, as if she were the one in control, and in a way, she was. The glow from her phone reflected in her eyes as she sent another quiet message. "They'll contact you soon. Just be ready." Moments later, a call buzzed in the cockpit. The captain's brows furrowed as he listened, then glanced toward his co-pilot. "That's unusual," he murmured. "They said it's urgent. Executive-level directive." When the intercom light blinked in the galley again, Miranda felt her pulse spike. She picked it up with shaking hands. "This is the captain," came the voice. "Miranda, the passenger you reassigned, Miss Carter. She's on the airline's board of directors. The order from headquarters is clear. She's to receive full priority treatment. Effective immediately." Miranda froze. "The board?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "That's right," the captain replied firmly. "Return to her seat and apologize personally. When we land, you'll provide a written report." The call ended, leaving Miranda standing in silence, the color draining from her face. Dennis, her senior colleague, eyed her from across the galley. "What's going on?" he asked. Miranda swallowed hard. I moved someone I shouldn't have." Dennis frowned. "Who?" Miranda met his gaze. "Ava Carter." Dennis exhaled sharply. "You mean the Ava Carter? You've just embarrassed one of the board's top executives mid-flight." Miranda's world tilted. She grabbed a tray, her trembling fingers barely steady enough to hold a single glass of sparkling water. Each step toward the main cabin felt like a mile. Passengers turned as she approached Ava's row, the silence thick with curiosity. Ava looked up, serene as ever. "Miss Carter," Miranda began, her voice small. "I'd like to sincerely apologize for the misunderstanding earlier. It was an error on my part." Ava studied her for a moment, calm, unreadable. "A misunderstanding," she repeated softly. "That's one way to describe it." Miranda nodded quickly, desperate. "Please accept this as a token of apology." She placed the glass on Ava's tray with trembling hands. Ava looked at it, then back at her. "Apology accepted," she said simply. "But I believe the airline will handle this from here." Her tone was calm, but final, like a gavel striking down in a courtroom. Miranda's throat tightened. She managed a weak nod before retreating toward the galley, her heart pounding louder than the engines outside. By the time the plane began its descent, the tension in the air was unbearable. Clara, the kind attendant from earlier, moved gracefully down the aisle, helping passengers prepare for landing. When she reached Ava, she smiled softly. "Anything else before we land, Miss Carter?" Ava's eyes warmed. "No, thank you, Clara. You've been wonderful." The younger attendant blushed faintly, nodding before stepping away. Meanwhile, Miranda stayed near the cockpit, avoiding Ava's gaze completely. The shame was suffocating. As the wheels touched down smoothly on the runway, Miranda allowed herself a brief sigh of relief. Maybe, she thought, this could all be fixed quietly. But fate had other plans. When the seatbelt sign turned off, passengers rose to gather their bags. Ava didn't move. She remained seated, composed. Her phone buzzed again, and she typed a brief message. "We've landed, proceed." Seconds later, 2 uniformed security officers boarded the plane. Their voices were calm but firm as they addressed Miranda. "Miss Miranda Scott, Every head turned. Miranda froze in place. Yes? We'll need you to come with us, one officer said. There's been a formal report filed by the executive office. You'll need to provide a statement immediately. A ripple of whispers swept through the cabin. Passengers looked between Miranda and Ava, finally realizing what had been happening all along. Ava stood, collecting her bag with quiet dignity. As she passed Miranda, their eyes met one last time. I told you it was a misunderstanding, Ava said softly, but her tone carried the weight of justice. Miranda opened her mouth to speak, but the words never came. The officers escorted her down the aisle and off the plane. Her once proud posture now wilted under the weight of humiliation. Outside the terminal, Ava's driver was waiting beside a sleek black car. The sun glinted off the runway as she stepped out into the open air, her composure unshaken. She spoke briefly into her phone. Yes, she's been detained. Ensure the board reviews the footage and statements. I want this handled properly. Her voice wasn't angry, it was resolute, firm. The kind of voice that didn't just demand change but created it. Hours later, Miranda sat in a stark white interrogation room at the airport. Her uniform looked smaller on her now, creased, tired, defeated. A senior officer leaned forward. Miss Scott, the passenger you reassigned is not only an executive but a shareholder. Do you understand the gravity of that? Miranda's voice cracked. I didn't know. I thought she wasn't supposed to be in that seat. The officer raised a brow. And why did you think that? Miranda hesitated, realizing the truth cut too deep to say aloud. I just made a mistake. Outside, Ava stood near baggage claim, phone in hand, voice steady as she gave her final instructions. Handle it with professionalism, she said. This isn't about me. It's about making sure it never happens again. Her car pulled away from the terminal, disappearing into the city lights while back inside. Miranda sat alone, staring at her reflection in the glass wall, understanding at last that her downfall had been written the moment she judged someone by appearance, not truth. As Ava's plane story spread across headlines, the world called it justice, but Ava called it a lesson. Because sometimes karma doesn't wait till tomorrow. It flies with you on the same plane.